Well, the one I do want to talk about how you got involved in the first place, and so if we can start, so you were you're hitchhiking, right?
Every time fly my golden soldier home, fly my soldier home, my golden soul, my brother man, my wolf man, brother Jack man, love and hope, never dying, always flying, we're always loving you, my golden soul, master man.
So you were hitchhiking in California, I assume, right?
Yeah, I was hitchhiking in California.
How old were you?
I was 20 years old.
Okay, so this is in 1970?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happened?
What happened? What?
You were hitchhiking in California in 1970,
Yeah.
and someone picked you up, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not... I'd like to say at the outset, I feel like the details of things like this, I kind of resist. I guess I've said it so many times, and I've seen it played back at me so many times. I'm like, the point is not, that's not the point, you know? Because really, to understand what this whole episode is about, you'd have to talk to Charles Manson. And everybody that's been involved in one way or another, you know, we just get our personal takes on it and do what we do in a personal way. But the media has never allowed, you know, him to speak unfettered. It's always been taken apart and played back like they want to hear it. It's just like the questions you ask me, your question will infer the answer. And so when it comes to my personal details like that or what happened, I'm glad to talk about it, and I'm really glad it happened the way it did. But the problem is that right now Charlie's sitting in the cell, in a jail cell, and he's sitting there 24/7, 365 days a year. And I mean, he's sitting there right now while we're talking. And so, you know, he might get out to walk down to, you know, a dog pen that has a 12-foot piece of concrete he can walk in circles around. But, you know, we're talking about somebody's freedom and somebody that, you know, is innocent of what he's accused of. And it's been going on 48 years, and he's paid the price for, and whatever we want to talk about and whatever we want to do, we still have that freedom. But it's a lie, because it's predicated on a lie that the media just keeps feeding into. And every few months they'll make another documentary and take their money to the bank. And Charlie just sits there suffering it for all of us. And he's always pointing to the environment. You know, he's not pointing to our personal moments, our personal, you know, wants. And it's like we're all in the same boat on this whole, you, me, the cameraman, the dog, the elephant, the whale, we're all breathing the same air. And if we pollute the air, the whale doesn't have a choice. He's got to come up and breathe the air that we pollute. And the children don't have a choice. Like I was going to ask you, were you born into a polluted world?
Me?
Yeah.
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, because I'm older, you know, when I was born, it wasn't in our face. You know, we were playing in the woods, we were breathing. The air wasn't, the clouds were real clouds. They weren't chemtrails or geoengineering. And so we had a childhood. We had, you know, we had clean water to drink without, you turn on the tap. You even go to the creek. You know, it wasn't unheard of to drink out of the creeks. Fill your canteens, guys, you know. And now, not even close, man. And so I was thinking about how the children has changed. That's how long it's been going on. But it comes down to that breathing the air, and like we need to stop and slow down and say, wait a minute, what is this business as usual that is pushed on us by the media all the time, covering up what they want to cover up so somebody can go to the bank and keep that dollar rolling, and keep that machine moving, and keep those cars being bought and those trucks. What do we look at? Oh, the Dow. Oh, how many trucks do they sell? Oh, that's what's important to these people. It's not whether your child is going to be a healthy child. One thing I was thinking the other day too, the fact is that they took the lead out of the gasoline in North America. I don't know about Canada, but back in the 80s, right? Sometime, I believe. And that's fantastic because it was affecting people, and the children are very sensitive to that, and the brain changes with the lead. Well, they didn't take it out of, guess what? The airplane, the jet air fuel. So every time you see a jet over, thank you very much for the lead that's coming right down our heads. And how many people are taking these jet engines through the skies these days? It's like 1 million people a week. Is that right? I mean, it's huge. It's like, oh my God, 1 million people a month. How many flights, worldwide? And they don't go, oh, excuse me, we're dropping lead on you right now. You have to dig to find that kind of thing. And that's the way it's been with the media from the very start.
Why are you, let's maybe just, why are you, because you talked about a lot of things, all great insight. Why are you so convinced? Like, so if I'm watching this and I say, well, what do you mean Charlie's innocent? Like, why are you so convinced Charlie's innocent? You don't have to get into the details of the case or anything. I mean, well, like, why do you have such conviction in that belief?
Well, I guess one reason is because I met him, and I've talked to him a lot when I've looked in his eyes, and I've known a lot of people that were around him, and but actually it's not something that's unique to myself, because I can look at these interviews that he did with the media, and you can tell by the way he handles himself. Another thing is you can tell by how many years he's been in some of the toughest prisons in the United States. And he said himself, if he was guilty of anything, he wouldn't have made it through this long, because that's a pressure cooker, and you have to be solid in your own heart. And he's walking the walk, a walk of truth. He's not. He didn't start out lying to anybody. And people say, well, how come he was so attractive to people? Well, he was, quote, married to the truth. That's the way he lives his life. He's not into your business, and he's not necessarily ready for you to get into his. It's like that, he grew up in the prisons, so it's a whole nother way of living than what we're used to. And they say honesty among thieves. And so, it's just, everybody knows it. If you're shifty and you're living a lie and you're sneaking, you don't walk the same way on the street. People, you can feel people. Truth tellers, you feel them right away, and you want to be around them, like, because they're going to tell you how they feel. So, he's not lying about nothing.
But what is it that, because I assume before, there was a point where you didn't know Charlie, and then you met him, and then but now he's a big part of your life, right? So why have you chosen to kind of advocate for him, I guess?
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I think one of the main reasons is that this trial and this conviction that came down on him and the girls and the other guys involved also, it took our rights away. It took our rights away in the courtroom. And there were a lot of things going on in the 60s that actually have been covered up. And So that's one of the main reasons, is because I want my children to be able to go to a courtroom and get a fair trial. And I don't care who it is, if somebody doesn't get a fair trial, then we're all in trouble, and especially something this, straight up and in everybody's face. They put this on as a show trial. They had Nixon stand up and say, Charlie's guilty, before he even got into his trial, into his courtroom. It was, I believe it was during the penalty phase. I mean, whatever the introductory pre-trial they call. So that's when it comes down to the solid part you're asking about, like, why would I stand up and put myself out there? That's the main reason, because it's just brotherhood from the standpoint. It goes all the way back to the Constitution. Like, these framers of the Constitution, our forefathers, so to speak, they said, well, we want sovereignty from England. We don't want anybody taxing us with no reason. And in other words, we want to take care of our own business in our own way. And so, same thing, the war between the states, the war of independence, the South, taxes, somebody else trying to tell you what to do. And, you owe me money. Well, hey, man, you aren't doing anything. Why am I giving you money? And then it's the courtroom. It's solidified in the courtroom. Do you have a right to a fair trial, by your peers? All those things that they list in the Constitution. And then if they take that away, they say, well, a fair trial for some people, but this guy's special. It doesn't matter that we tried him in the media. He has to go to jail because he's evil. Well, what makes him evil? And then, so they do it all in the media, and then there's no way you get in there and you're going to have a fair trial. And then all the tricks and the subterfuge that they ran through, that they covered up all these years. And so now, if you don't have money, man, you go out there on the street without your wallet, and you see where you end up, and you see what kind of representation you get, and you find out that they put you wherever they want, and then they'll keep dragging you back out of there. Every chance they get, you mess up a little bit in there, and then they'll put another 5 years on you, and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like two different worlds, and it's the biggest money maker they got. The prison industry is the biggest industry in California.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I was there yesterday. It's an impressive structure.
And then how many they got? They got hundreds of them.
2 back to back over here. We went to the first one. They said, no, you're at the wrong prison. We said, what? He goes, there's another one. I couldn't believe it. It's massive.
Yeah.
It takes 10 minutes to drive around.
Yeah, it's serious, man.
Corcoran, I read that half the people in Corcoran are in the prison.
Yeah, they add the Corcoran's population. They add the prison to the Corcoran's population. So there's 10,000 guys on that corner, as they say. And they just, they forget about you. They just throw you in there, and then, like I said, but because the courtroom is a sham now.
Well, how you said very eloquently. I thought you stand up because at that trial we lost our rights. What do you mean by that?
Well, if the judge doesn't follow the rules that are written, and the DA doesn't follow the rules that are written, what do you got? What do you got? And they had, like, for instance, in the 60s, they were losing the army. Nixon and his cronies and the people that were making money off the Vietnam War. The youngsters at that time, there's a different feeling than now. People were not so much turning against, but they were changing from the uptight, staid, everybody does what's right because somebody's thinking about who we are and what we're doing, and all those, rules and regulations. They were like, yeah, I'll grow my hair long, hey man, it's cool. You don't like it, let's talk about it. Check out the music, man. Relax, dance, sing, make love, not war, all those things. And then the guys that are paying the bloody price over there, they're starting to wake up too. Like, well, man, this is just a war for Monsanto. This is for Dow Chemical. This isn't about liberty. We aren't freeing anybody here. We're just killing people for these corporations. And when they started to stand up, they stood up like this. They stood up like they weren't messing around. And when that came back to the States and they were marching and they were going to jail and they were proud of it, not so much proud of being in the jail, but they weren't backing down. They're saying, I'm proud of what I'm feeling and what I'm saying, because I know I've been there. I've seen my brothers get blown up. And that's what was happening on the streets. And the Army took it back. The Army, the guys, the youngsters said, oh, we got the power. We'll go where we want to go. And Nixon and those guys were like, whoa, no, that's not the way it's supposed to work. Well, then you do a righteous war. You do it righteous. You tell us the truth from the beginning. And you tell us the truth from the beginning, and we'll stand up for God and country, but it ain't going to be for a lie. And when they lost that, they panicked. And they saw Charlie with the long hair and the beautiful women and the guitar and the joint and all the cool things that everybody knew was cool, and the motorcycle. And he was walking that line too. He was right there with every brother on the street. And another thing which they twisted was the blacks, because the blacks were going, black is beautiful. Hey, I'm strong and beautiful too, just like you, white brother. And white brother was going, that's right, you are. We're right with you. We're right with you on that, you know? But they twisted around. They said, no, let's make that evil. Charlie's run to race war. Charlie's against the black people. You know, Charlie wants to overcome the black people, blah, 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 blah. And so they twisted around, and then they broke it in half. And they got the blacks over here and the whites over here. They got the old over here. They got the young over here. They got the people that smoke dope over here, and they got the people in the music over here, and they got the people that want to, you know, so it's the same old thing, divide and conquer.
But there was a lot of conflict between blacks and whites in the 60s, I mean, at that time.
But it wasn't black and white brothers. It wasn't black and white youngsters. It was the black underneath the old programs of, yeah, you know, we're going to keep you down so we can make our money off you. They were waking up to their position and what was been going on. Just like the whites were waking up to theirs, like, man, we've been programmed. This is bullshit. And so the blacks and the whites in the Army, they're marching together, man. You know, and same thing on the street, man. It was respect. You know, it was respect. It wasn't like, you know, and anyway.
No, it's all good. You saw, like, speaking of the unjustness and the how unfair the trial was, you saw it firsthand, right? I mean, you didn't go to the whole thing, but
No.
you did go check it out.
Yeah.
What did you see? Because all we see is through the camera. That's all. Like, all that we can see is what's on, you know, the news, the media. But you saw it firsthand. You were there.
Well, yeah, but I saw it from you got to remember, I was 20 years old. And also, looking back is a lot different than being there, because being there, you're just like, it's just another day and you're seeing something in front of you. But I saw Charlie's awareness. I saw him, when you go in the courtroom, it's like everybody looks at Charlie. You know, well, why isn't everybody didn't look at the judge in that courtroom? Everybody's looking at Charlie, because Charlie's the man with the awareness. Charlie's the man with the understanding. And they didn't like that, man. Just like you get a guy, I was thinking last night, you get a guy that goes down the street and there's like 8 women walking along with him, you get some attention, you know? Mm-hmm. And so they start running their little games of, well, they put all the girls that wanted to testify in his favor, in his defense, they subpoenaed them so they could keep him out. Well, you're subpoenaed, so you can't come into the trial. And so then they just end up with court reporters and curiosity seekers in there instead of his supporters. And, you know, they took his propeller away, which now they won't do that. You know, they, as soon as he gets out of there and they got what they want him, then they turn around and say, oh, the next guy in line, well, yeah, we'll let him, even though he's totally incompetent, he gets to, you know, represent himself. But Charlie, they say, well, you're making crazy motions. We're going to take your propeller away. Well, he wasn't making crazy motions. He was making motions that made a lot of sense legally. He was making motions to protect himself and defend himself. And they just didn't like it because he was way over top of their thought. But you got to realize he did 22 years. He grew up in there. He did 22 years before he even got out for 2 years. So, you know, he had a level of understanding that they'd never seen in the courtroom. And they couldn't, you know, they were like, well, wait a minute. They were making money on him. I think you found out that there was the DA was writing a book. He had his book writer sitting in there the whole time.
He started writing a book as soon as he got to the case.
Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah, no worries. Take a step. George told me that I haven't looked at it yet. He just told me this morning. He said he was shopping the book around during the trial, and he has a copy, or someone has a copy of the letter that he was writing to book publishers to say, like.
Yeah, that's it. I was thinking about that letter the other day. Like, I know I'd seen it or heard of it, and I just wondered who had it, and you know, where I saw it.
I see. Take your glass off. So I'm gonna look it up. But yeah, but you at the time, how did the media, how did the circus treat, like, because you saw the girls on the street corner, right? Did you sit with them? I don't recall if you sat with them at all, or.
Well, actually, I went down there with them the first night we went down there, first afternoon, and then we got arrested on the corner.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So you got arrested. So
Yeah.
how were you? Like, how were they being received and treated?
Like a curiosity, like, you know, and there was a lot of animosity against them, and but I'm not really an expert on that corner so much as or how the girls were treated. And
No, I'm just curious what you personally saw. Just because
it was interesting because the girls used to sing songs in the hallways of the courtroom, and you talk about something new and different. Have you ever been in a courthouse where somebody's singing in a group? Yeah, and especially when they're beautiful and the song's beautiful, man, they could sing. Those girls, such beautiful voices, and not in a trained way, but just a natural singing from the heart. And it used to stop people. I mean, there huge crowds would clog up the whole hallway because everybody just stopped to listen and look, like, what in the world is going on here? And but, you know, they tend to, I think part of the looking back and part of what people seem to feel about what happened was there was a lot of tension, a lot of anguish, a lot of anger, la. It wasn't that way at all. You know, it was more of like, yeah, we're in love with each other. We like each other. We hang out together. We sing songs together. You know, we like to live outdoors. We like to camp. You know, what's your question? You know, and it wasn't like a resistance or like kill or anything like that. So when I went to the ranch, I felt it was just the most mellow place I'd ever been, and there was no ambitions. People were just living their lives, and it was friendly, it was relaxed, and it was amazing. You know, they had horses there, and you know, you pull your weight, and just like any other place. So yeah, it's a lot different than what the media might portray.
You must get frustrated because, you know, you see these things like that ABC show that was on the other day, and writers and things like that, and you just must want to scream at the TV and say, like, this is lies. You're being fed lies. Like, you know, it frustrates me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating when they do that, you know, to myself when, you know, I've given interviews before, just kind of like just answering questions that someone might ask about my experience, and then they'll talk to me for an hour and a half, and then they'll show 2 minutes of the worst possible, so that they can fit it into their narrative. So yeah, it's like the whole narrative. What is the narrative? This narrative that works for them is throw blood on it, make it just as scary as possible, make it evil, like Charlie wears evil jackets and wears evil tennis shoes and plays an evil guitar. Well, what is evil? Is evil like somebody that maybe dumps pollution in your river so your children get sick? That might be considered evil. So it's just a reflection. They reflect all the angst, all the fear, all the guilt of what this machine is doing to us onto one man. And they scapegoated him. They scapegoated the 60s. They scapegoated that, the army rising up and saying it's got to be righteous, it's got to be real before we're going to give our lives for this. And those people couldn't answer with anything real and anything righteous. So they started to lose their army, and then they saw Charlie, and they just said, "Oh no, all that love and beauty that you saw there, actually it was a trick. He was evil the whole time. He was just trying to get in those little girls that he had, and he was controlling those women. He controlled them. How did he control them? What do you mean he controlled? He hypnotized them. Oh, he hypnotized them. What's hypnotism? Is hypnotism like maybe a media that repeats the same lie over and over and over and over and over and over and runs the bank with the millions of dollars? Charlie hadn't made any money off this. The DA made a lot of money. DA made a lot of money, like millions and millions and millions. We could talk about that all night. I mean, how long does it take to spend $25 million off of one trial?
Does it, when you think about like where Charlie's at now or his life, when was the first time you met him? How long ago was that?
I met him in 1970, and he was in jail. The girls took me up there.
Oh, that was the first time you met him?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So the first time you met him was during the trial, it would have been?
Yep.
And they took you up to meet him?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what he didn't give you the name Grey Wolf till much later?
No, much later, yeah.
Yeah, because of the gray.
Well, he didn't say why. One reason the gray is this right here. This thing right here.
Why is that?
Because this was a war of independence. And this is the flag they're throwing away. They're trying to tear it down right now. But that's a lie, and it's a racial game. Because this isn't about race. This is about independence. This is about sovereignty. And sovereignty is a whole lot different than a race game. And the states came together in a union. And it was Lincoln, the corporate lawyer, who was working for the railroads, and all the corporations that wanted to make the money when they wanted the money. They turned it around and said, yeah, we'll free the blacks. Well, they freed the blacks in the South and kept the ones in the North, hoping that it would hurt the army of the South. But the Southern people just wanted independence. They started this. The states came together and started a government that would serve them. But when the North looked over at the South, was doing a lot better. The South was doing good. They wanted to, well, we need to tax you for that. And so they started doing the same thing that England did. They started taxing the South like England was taxing the original folks. And they said, well, we just aren't going to be a part of that if you're going to act like that. And they said, oh, yes, you are. And what do you mean, yes, we are? We joined this thing, we can unjoin it. And no, you can't. Oh, well, yeah, right. So it was a war of independence. And Lincoln sacrificed hundreds of thousands of people for that, to get over on top. That's not the way. It wasn't anything about, race. That's been turned upside down.
Well, slavery was a part of it.
Slavery was happening, yeah, but they used that as a tool. They used that as a tool to win the war. And every other country in the world that had slavery, and there's a bunch of them, they did it peacefully, right?
I mean, ended slavery?
Yeah, they did it peacefully. They said, well, the way the economies, it all came down to economies, and the way the economies were set up is, the men that were slaves didn't have the same rights. So they said, okay, we're going to give the men rights and we're going to give compensation for the way the economy was before. It's different, so we'll compensate and we'll balance the economy. And we'll have men, you know, treating men like men should be treated. But Lincoln didn't want to go that way. Lincoln wanted to get over on everybody, the blacks and the whites, and keep that money coming for the corporations. And so they split it down the middle, and now it's been reflected, as Charlie says, it's been reflected all over the world. You got North and South Korea, North and South Vietnam. Where'd they go last? Iraq? They split that down the middle too. You know, well, now they're in Libya, they busted up Libya and Afghanistan, but they're just reflecting all the way around because we lost the sovereignty in this war right here. That was about sovereignty. That was about sovereignty.
Do you, before you said you met Charlie in the 70s, and then you've, I mean, what do you, can you express how you feel knowing that he's, like, what his life is like in prison? Like, I think people don't understand, I think they have a fantasy of what it's like to be in prison.
Well, for one thing, to experience anything like that, I think, you know, you'd have to slow down a lot, maybe spend, you know, a couple of months in your bathroom by yourself to get any idea about what that's like. Because, you know, like you said, the idea of prison is what we get from the media, unless you've been in there. But there's also a brotherhood there that's not usually talked about, because there's nothing else to do but talk to your cellie or the guy down the road or whatever, and you find out who's who and what's what. And then you have to have a certain amount of respect for your brother to survive in there, and love for your brother. And, you know, the difference between thinking and not thinking maybe is part of it. Because out here, we're going to be thinking about the rent, and we're going to be thinking about the groceries, and we're going to think about the kids getting to school, and we're going to be, you know, you name it, you know, the car payment, blah, blah, blah. And by the time the day's over, you're like, how much time did you have to maybe just be silent and understand what your own thoughts are in your own heart, and what the reason you're getting up for, and what the reason, you know, you're marching to somebody else's orders for what, maybe. And just, you know, the observation of yourself and how you balance in the world. And those places, there's a lot to be said that they're like, you know, a place that a monk might be. So there's a lot of time for reflection. And then, so you meet somebody that's done 10 years in jail, and he has a certain silence in him. You know, he has a certain strength because he happens to know what his own thoughts are. So that would be one thing I'd say about that.
Yeah, I think really well said. Can you tell me a bit about, well, let's just start, what, for someone who has no idea, what is ATWA?
Can I take a break for a second?
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
I need to stand up.
Yeah, go ahead, stand up.
Take a stretch or something.
You want to switch cards?
Sure.
Let me just go see where that card is at.
Actually, I'd rather start over. That, what I just, no, I'm just kidding.
Important, you know, it's not just, oh, this guy owes me. The guy owes you, fucking owes you. You know,
Yeah.
That's huge, right?
It's life and death.
Yeah, it's life and death, exactly, everything. And even like the way he, you know, he's lived in a box where race has been institutionally segregated for 70 years. You know, of course he sees race that way. You know, in some aspects. I mean, who wouldn't? You know, that doesn't make him a racist, but you know, everything about prison is influenced who he is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, and so when he's talking, when he's on the out, like in that 2 years that he was out when he was in California, he still had that. He's been in prison for 10 years. He had that prison mentality,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So being truthful and this and all, and people owing you favors and this and all that kind of underworld stuff, that was very real to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how he saw everything. He didn't operate on the way.
Yeah, he was operating in a different way than most people do.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any less valid. It just means he had a different way of seeing things. And that's, you know, that's to our benefit in a lot of ways. Like, have you heard him talk about the fact that he was, you know, he'd get out for whatever, 6 months or whatever, and then boom, he's back in for 5 years. And, you know, while he's out, he's looking around, he's like, you know, he sees what's going on, you know, especially on the ground, you know, the rivers, the lakes, the birds, the deer, you know, whatever. He gets out and 5 years later and he's like, whoa, wait a minute, where'd the creek go? Oh, it's a shopping center now. You know, what about the lake? That's a mall. And then, you know, the deer don't come around here, you know, and then he says, well, then boom, he's back in jail. 10 years later, he gets out, you know, and now there's not even a trace of that stuff, you know, and they're just filling everything up with concrete. And the youngsters don't even know what it used to be. So he has that, you know, he has that advantage as far as knowing and seeing on us because it just creeps up on us. Mm. You know, we used to play over there. That was a forest where we used to play when we were growing up. But our kids, you know, that's where they go to school. That's a school now. And so they have no idea of the beauty and the vastness of what things used to be. And especially the cleanliness, the non-pollution, you know, they're like, they don't have to, we didn't have to think twice before we jumped in a lake.
But even he goes to prison in 1957. Think about what California looked like in 1957. Mm-hmm. And think about what California looked like when he got out in 1967. I mean, it would be like literally getting in a time machine. Like you would feel like, what happened? Like, you know, think about like in 1957, the cars, they had these big clunkers, and he gets out in 1967, there's cars everywhere, like, and there's streets everywhere, and there's people everywhere, and there's buildings everywhere. Like, it would be like crazy. Like, it would shock you. No wonder you would want to live on a ranch in the in the woods, you know, because it'd be overwhelming. Don't you think?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and that's what you know. He was talking about that as soon as he got out. You know, he was talking to the girls and the guys at that ranch about, you know, and they knew. It's like, yeah, we're in trouble. We're being overwhelmed by the concrete. We're being overwhelmed by the corporations, by the automobile companies, by the lumber companies, by big pharma now is a big thing, big pharmacy. It's like, you know, we got drugs in our water, man. You know, we just can't get away from it. We got Monsanto's poison in our bloodstreams. They can't go anywhere in the world and test, you know, that's populated without finding Roundup in the bloodstream. It's like, you have a newborn child. There you go. His system's polluted already. And so, yeah, he was talking about the ecosystem, the ATWA, ATWA, air, trees, water, animals, as soon as he hit the ground. And those kids were like, yeah, we want to stop this war and we want to stop this pollution. And that's what they stood up for. But they wouldn't let him talk about that. And, you know, they're going to put him in we can't let him talk in the courtroom. He's going to hypnotize the jury. Yeah, right. That's not how hypnotism works. But they, you know, didn't want to hear that. They were making their money, man. They were selling the transcripts to whoever would buy them.
Was he talking in those words? Like, was he saying ATWA? Is that something that goes back to
ATWA as a word itself, I think, came when after he was convicted, after he'd been in jail, sitting for a while. But that concept, yeah, they were all about it. And I mean, it goes back to his uncle in the 30s and 40s when, you know, the Tennessee Valley Authority came in with their big dams in the Tennessee Valley and so forth, and bringing in the electricity, and they were killing the fish in the river, and people were What do you mean? Why do we need that electricity? You're going to kill all this ecosystem for something? Yeah, you really need it. We're trying to help you. Yeah, that's how they help. That's how they helped our ocean. We got plastic clogging the oceans. Did it help us? Did it help us to have plastic? I don't think so.
When Charlie was in prison, did he start using that word, or it wasn't really a conscious thing to say, I'm going to start like a nonprofit. There he was.
No.
It was more of just a vibe, right? Like, or
yeah,
it was, turn of phrase.
No, oh, you mean he invented that word? All the way alive, ATWA, ATWA. It means a lot of different things. It's like a mantra. It's like a tool for meditation. It's like a tool for illuminating what's really going on. And it covers all the bases. It's a kind of a magic word.
What else does it mean? I'm sorry. I didn't realize that it meant more than air, trees, water, sunlight.
Well, yeah, it means all the way alive. And you could put an R on it, at war against pollution. The CDC, California Department of Corrections, they put an R on theirs for California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. But there aren't any programs where Charlie is. There's no hobby program in there. They just want you to think that they're protecting you and taking care of the prisoners. They don't take care of anybody in there. They come clean up the messes. They don't put their lives on the line. They want to spend their $60,000 starting salary straight out of high school. The strongest union in California is the Correctional Officers Union. And they cut back, they're just like the teachers union. They negotiate the time they go to work and the time they get off. And so Charlie's got a 5-hour visit on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, these guys don't really need a Friday visit. So then they sit around and crack jokes on Friday instead of, opening up the visiting room. And, just in a short time I've been there, I've seen that happen. They lost Friday visits. Why? Well, they'll come up with any kind of excuse that meets the road, And the other thing is, the visits are from 8:30 to 3:30. Okay, and then so they'll go with that for a while, and then they're like, okay, it's 3:00. Start getting ready to go. Bring us that, sign this. Charlie, come over here. We want to get ready to search you. So they break you up at 3 so they can walk out the door at 3:30 instead of we visit till 3:30 and then they clean up and walk out the door. So they always chop it back on the prisoners. Same with the food. Man, it takes a saint and a miracle worker to survive on the food in there that they serve. That is one thing I can't comprehend, how a man can live that long on that food.
What kind of food do they serve in there?
They just feed you the cheapest thing they can come up with because everybody's feeding off it. Everybody's feeding off the dollar. It's like the contracts. You got contracts for guard uniforms, for the prisoners. You got contracts for shoes for the prisoners. You got contract for the food. You got contracts for the snacks. You got contracts for the phone. They had to do a federal case on Verizon and those guys because they were charged. It would cost somebody's halfway across the country. They charge $7 a minute, $4 a minute, $5 a minute, $3.50 a minute, while you and me are spending 10 cents a minute.
Mine's 75.
Yeah, but
in Canada.
No, but I'm talking about between your call and my call.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. When Charlie calls me, it's 75 cents a minute.
Right. They changed it. They said, "Wait a minute, what are you guys doing?" So you get the poor people, they're carrying this whole thing, and everybody feeds on it. So yeah, the food's a big problem, man. I'd like to see the governor sit down in there someday for about 2 weeks and eat that food every day. There's just no way, man.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I had no idea about the food and stuff.
It's unbelievable.
Do a lot of people, let's talk about ATWA for a sec. What can you ATWA really is kind of just a way of life, I would assume, right? Is that it's more of a way of looking at the world than a philosophy, or how would you describe it?
I think it's different for everybody. I think it's I would call it an awakening, just to the fact of, before you solve a problem, you have to slow down enough to know exactly what the problem is. And then you got to, check out what solutions might work. And you may have to try 2 or 3 different ones. But you can't do it if you're in a hurry. And you can't do it if you've got other things you're trying to do at the same time. You have to know how much of a problem it really is. Is it something I can do as a hobby? Is it something I can take care of when I get a minute? Or is it something that I have to face right now with every breath I've got, with every beat of my heart, with every resource I could put on it? And I think that's the word ATWA. It's like in your face: air, trees, water, animals. In fact, I'd like to read something, if you don't mind. And this is a statement by Charlie. It was actually transcribed off the phone call. And it just gives an idea of what ATWA is all about. It starts like this: crime is anything that's done against your survival. Any sin that's against your life is a crime. Any sin that's against your life is a crime. The law is the will of God. The law should be respected and taken as God's will, not something to be toyed and played with and used for bureaucratical hogwash of bullshit. The problem is the atmosphere is dying. Anything that sins against the air is a sin against your life. Anybody that sins against the air should be considered a criminal, and any act that's done against the air in any way at all should be considered a crime. Crime is a war against anything, anyone, any shape or form that is a threat to your survival. The world order of the court in crime and punishment is: the air is God. Without the air, we cannot survive. Anything that's made in the law should be against the criminals that are destroying your air. The air is all you've got. So you listen to that and you say, I've never heard a man talk like that. And then you say, well, the media shows Charlie as someone who's crazy and evil, but that's not a crazy man talking, unless you look at it as a prophet, which all prophets are crazy. Excuse me. You look at it as a society that's turning all their resistance against somebody that's talking the truth. But the children these days, they see Charlie on the media and they say, oh, those people are asking trick questions. That man's telling the truth. They know right away. You get 8, 9, 10, 11, 15-year-olds, they contact us, they call us up and they're like, whoa, the media is lying. The media won't let him talk, even when they have a quote interview, because they just chop it up and turn it around. They're just looking for that moment when they can get him upset, when they can get the intenseness, and then they can turn around and say, oh yeah, Charlie said this, but it's out of context. But the truth is, this is the truth. If you don't come to the realization of your atmosphere is dying faster every day, because everybody that is play acting crime, criminals, law, courts, and religion are destroying the planet Earth in a holy war to destroy all life and hang it up on the cross with your dead God. You've got to stop all the pollution or there is no life on Earth. The real war against crime is against the pollution. The New World Order does not need a leader. It needs intelligent life forms who can simply understand simple equations of 1 and 1 is 2. Air is number 1. Number 2, the ground, the green, the tree. The tree, if we don't have the tree, we don't have the green things that give the air, we're not going to have any air. So that's not a crazy man. That's not a crazy man. I don't care what time of life or day or night or years, anytime the air is being destroyed, anytime your water is being destroyed, those are 2 words. And the people that try to cover it up and try to split it up and try to twist it for their own reasons, those are the criminals. It's not hard to understand. That's what ATWA is. ATWA, all the way alive. When you understand that and you decide to take your time about what you do and why you do it, it's like breathing in and breathing out. You know, Charlie told me, he said, we've already got it. You and I and these men and women here, we've already got it. Why we already have it? Because we're breathing. We're breathing in and out. We're all brothers and sisters right there. And that includes the elephant that you are, and the whale that you are, and the scorpion that you are, and the roach that you are, and the squirrel that you are. And all those guys do the will of God. They're our garden workers, the bee. You know, we're looking at the destruction of the bee. It's like, you talk about emotion, you know, wouldn't you feel emotional if you knew the bee was in trouble? If you had the time to just breathe and stay with that thought for a minute? Wait a minute, why is the bee in trouble? The bee is, what's wrong? The bee's not hurting anybody. The bee's doing the best. He's serving us. He puts the honey on the table. He makes the flower, you know, he makes the fruit come out of the flower. And the moth and all those guys. And then we spray that. We say, oh, well, we don't want to, you know, well, it'll be okay. I know it kills a lot of other, but, you know, we need. So, you know, that's what ATWA is. ATWA is awareness. ATWA is an alliance of awareness. You can play with those letters. It's amazing what you can come up with.
How many people reach out? How many, I guess, do you have members of ATWA? Or is it just whoever?
You know, that's funny because like at the ranch, everybody asked the same question, like, well, the Manson family, once the media came up with the Manson family, like, well, can I be in the Manson family? It's like, well, can you? Are you? I mean, there's no membership cards. There's no membership to ATWA. It's just knowing. It's just thinking for yourself and being aware, the power of observation. Charlie talks about the power of observation. You use your power of observation. You are ATWA. There's no getting away from it. That's the thing. There's another thing. One mind, you know. That's where we all exist, in the mind. One mind. Just like there's only one earth. There's only one bee. He's got a lot of species. You know, there's only one water. And so, you know, you want to pollute that river. Well, that's just not one river that's being polluted. That's the whole of water. So it's all one, and that's what ATWA is pointing to. It's just like, man, we've got life support systems on this planet. It's a simple thing, but it's not an easy thing, because we all feel it. When I say that, we've got life support systems on this planet. Well, right now, there's an emotional reaction to that, because we all know our life support systems are being destroyed, and we don't have any control over that. You don't control how many tractors that some company's going to make and send over somewhere to tear down a forest for palm oil. You don't really have any control of that, but you have control about how you spend your dollar. You have control about who you talk to on the phone. You have control about what you say. So a lot of it is just knowing and feeling, and then acting on what you know is right.
Do you appreciate, or do you get annoyed with, or frustrated with all the people? Over the years, people have they write to Charlie, or have kind of gotten on his visitor list, or like come in and out of his life looking for something, you know. Some of them are probably legitimate, some of them are probably passionate, some of them are groupies, some of them just want something from him, but people just keep coming to him. So what do you think? What's your opinion of that?
I don't really think I have an opinion. I have an experience.
Yeah, okay, what's your experience?
Experience with it.
Sure.
My experience would be that, there's some people that just want to be around the buzz of it. There's people that just, they want to get some attention somehow. They want to be different or better, or, more informed, or, they'll have some ambition or competition and some jealousy. But those are all human, facets or attributes. So we're all just humans. So it's just it's part of the way life is, you know. It's just part of life, and it just has to be dealt with, like however it is that you feel you need to deal with it.
That's great. Is there anything else you want to say with your?
My little collection, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like collection. I'd like to show this book
Please,
right here.
please
Two
go
of them actually. This book right here.
You still just show it to me. He'll get a shot at it. Do you want to say? Is there something you want to say about that book?
Yeah, this book helps to uncover the truth about the so-called Civil War, the War of Independence, and the myth that's been propagated for control over the masses about Lincoln and the way things went down during that time. And I highly recommend this book. The same author also wrote this. It's a little shorter, but basically same idea. And there's also a lot of other good books that talk about the truth about what happened back then and what Lincoln was really up to and how he split this country right down the middle and saved the economy for a certain elite few.
Do you think, in terms of just wrapping up about Charlie Manson, do you think we've been lied to?
Who's we?
The masses, the people watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to ask people. People say, "Well, what about Charlie?" Da da da. And I say, "Well, when do you think the government is lying? Do you think the government lies? Do you think the media lies?" Most people say, "Yeah, I think the media lies. I think the government lies." Well, when do you think they started? And that's really a basic question, because a lot of people think they started lying after they were born. You know, but Charlie's been around a long time, and the 60s were a long time ago. And World War II was a long time ago. Were they lying during World War II? Turns out they were lying, man. You know, they got us into that war with their lies in the media. And what about before that? You know, what about World War I? How far back do you have to go to find a lie? And so, yeah, we've been lied to. And the truth is going to come out, though. The truth always comes out, and the truth is what lasts. So I'll stand with the truth and with that one.
My golden soul, my brother man, my wolf man, brother Jack man, love and hope. Never dying, always flying. We're always loving you, my golden soul, master man. My love forever flies. No dying, no dying, no dying, no dying, all flying, flying home. My golden soul, brother man, my forever love.